Hello, my name is David Israel, and I am a world history teacher at East Jefferson High School in Jefferson Parish. As an educator, I am passionate about creating an inclusive classroom environment built upon respect and academic inquiry. Uh, as a world history teacher, I teach 9th through 12th graders, though my class is primarily composed of 10th graders. This unit, Unit 6, is focused primarily on imperialism, colonialism, and indigenous responses to these processes. The curriculum I am using is from the OER project, which was created by social historians at the high school level and previously adopted by Jefferson Parish. Our lesson objective today is to build image analysis skills to examine differing perspectives on imperialism during the 19th century. This lesson is the second part of a two-part lesson covering the topics of imperialism, colonialism, and native responses to these processes. Our previous lessons covered the unique nature of industrial imperialism during the late 19th century and the ways in which industrialization led to the acceleration of imperialism and colonialism. This lesson connects to the larger goal of this course, which is to examine the way that interconnectivity affects communities, networks, and production and distribution. These materials have been adapted for both ESL students and students with reduced workloads. We're talking about imperial cartoons, right? Political cartoons. So we want to analyze these cartoons about imperialism to reinforce what we were learning yesterday about imperialism and to have an opportunity to think about the perspective of both the imperialists and those who rejected this type of domination, right? So, additionally, we're going to engage in image analysis, right? Basically what this whole thing is analyzing images, which is an important skill, right? Images can often speak louder than words, and they're often more powerful than words. So, let's look at this first image here, right? So, picture number one, the Berlin Conference. What do y'all see here? Describe what you see in this picture.
Cake or a pie.
A cake or a pie.
A table of people.
Table of people. Yes, Diego.
A certain cake that looks like it's about African being cut to slices.
Yes, right? A cake that looks like Africa being cut into slices, right?
Distribution?
Distribution, right? Where are they distributing?
Africa.
Yeah.
Territories of Africa.
The territories of Africa, right? So, when we look at our first question, right, who is present in this cartoon, right? Both who is present and also who is not present.
Africa's not present.
Africa is not present, right? So, very good. Africa is not present. Or an African representative or representatives are not present. So, who instead is at the table right now?
Imperialists?
Imperialists, right? European imperialists, specifically. And what is the message of this political cartoon, right? Using the details that are included in here, right? What do you think that the person who created this is trying to say?
They're trying to show like the distribution of African territories.
Yeah, trying to show the distribution of African territories, specifically at the Berlin Conference, right? We mentioned that yesterday, which was a meeting between European powers, specifically Germany, France, Great Britain, Spain, Belgium, and the Netherlands, right? Where they divided up bits and pieces of Africa. So, they're distributing. In y'all's opinion, do you think this political cartoon, do you think the artist is portraying imperialism in a positive light or a negative light?
Negative.
Negative.
Negative? Yeah. Why do y'all think that?
I feel like it's showing how Europe is taking positions over Africa and it's not actually Africa doing it.
Yes. Well said, right? Because it's showing Europe claiming pieces of Africa, right? Places that don't belong to it, right? Specifically, this is considered a satire, right? Because they're taking an important subject, right? Like the division of Africa, and then making a joke of it almost, right? This person right here is the unifier of Germany, Otto von Bismarck, right? And these fellows all around him are representatives from the various European powers here. And they're taking something serious, like I said, the division of Africa, and making it into like a party reference, right? Cutting a cake. What historical event or imperialist practice is this cartoon referencing?
Territories.
Hmm.
The claiming of territories.
Yeah, the claiming of territories, absolutely, right? Y'all ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, we have this illustration here, right? Lindley Samsborn in the rubber coils, right? The Congo Free State. So, what do y'all think's going on in this picture?
We're seeing a king as like a snake.
King as a snake.
Congo's being taken control of by like the British maybe, or just various rulers.
Congo being taken control of by various rulers. Why is it titled In the Rubber Coils?
I mean, there's a snake coiling around the fan, so.
With a particular focus on rubber, right? In the rubber coils.
So they're using like raw materials. Like rubber houses, like rubbish, like floor size people.
I like where you're going with that. Good. Yeah, but Rosa is more on the news, right? I like the thought process behind it, right? But, so,
It's showing conquest this for a certain resource.
yeah, exactly, right? Whenever the Belgians, right, Belgium colonized the Congo, their main purpose of doing so was because they had large resource deposits of rubber, right? And so we have here, right, in the rubber coils, right, a rubber snake with the head of the Belgian king strangling a Congolese man. Colonialism, Belgian colonialism in the Congo was some of the most oppressive colonialism that happened in Africa. It was commonplace for Congolese slaves to have hands or feet cut off as a means of both supposedly preventing theft, but also discouraging revolution in any capacity, right?
On the closer, there was like it showed a picture of like elephant tusks.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that was in the Congo, you know. So, explain the message within this particular cartoon using the details the cartoon is included.
So it'd be Belgian conquest for rubber.
Yeah, the Belgian conquest of the Congo for rubber. All right. So, think about this picture, right? Does this look like a positive portrayal of imperialism?
No.
No, certainly not, right? Certainly not. Would anyone like to explain why they think not? Yes.
These imperialists, they like using oppressive means to drive the Congolans out of their land, so they can take over the land and take over the resources.
Yeah, absolutely, right. The Belgians, the imperialists, right, are using oppressive means to drive out the Congolese, right, or to enslave them. That's all we just talked about, right? What historical event or imperialist practice is this reference? Racism, for sure, right? Absolutely. What else? Remember when we talked yesterday about the difference between imperialism and colonialism? Anyone remember the exact difference between the two terms, right? They're often used interchangeably because they are different. So imperialism, right, is the process of expanding or creating empire, right? Colonialism is the experiences of those who are colonized, right, or imperialized. So, this is an example of colonialism, right? Because we're seeing the experiences of those who are imperialized. And what were the effects of Belgian imperialism, right? What do you think of the effects of Belgian imperialism in the Congo would be?
Oppressive control.
Oppressive control, yeah, absolutely.
Multiple deaths.
Yeah, right, multiple deaths. Well, how about we say widespread atrocities, right? It's like I said, once, or not like I said this earlier, right? But once decolonialism happened in the 50s and 60s, there are very famous photos on the internet that you can still see, right, of Congolese men and women who had their hands cut off or their feet cut off as children, right? Sometimes for a reason, right? Sometimes for no reason at all, right? This was a horrific atrocity that happened, right? And actually, somewhat recently, the current king of Belgium, right, their constitutional monarchy, so the king doesn't actually have any power, but they attended a ceremony in the Congo where they basically expressed their responsibility and remorse for the actions that happened during the Congo Free State, right? So, a really troubling moment in history. Alright. Picture number 3. The real trouble will come with the wake. So I'm going to zoom in on this one a little bit because it's a little far off, right? So, what are we seeing in this cartoon?
Well, we see major like world powers represented as animals.
Yeah, major world powers. What world powers are we seeing?
China, Japan, Russia, America.
America.
I assume the line is maybe British.
Yeah, the British.
Britain. Yeah, British.
Then we have Germany
Austria.
back there.
Germany, America.
Yeah, got the eagle with the hat in the background. Yeah, Uncle Sam, right there. So, what do you think the message within this cartoon is, right? Using the details that we can see in it. What do you think the message is?
Dispute for power, control over
Competition between powers. Between nations, okay?
For industrialization.
For industrialization. Think about the position of China, right? Where does China look like it is, right? Between all these powers. In the middle. Yeah.
Sleeping or defeated?
Defeated. Yeah. Defeated is what I'm looking for, right? This is China, like at the hands, at the whims of these powers surrounding it, right? So, we'll say a defeated China. As portrayed in this cartoon, right? What are the effects on China? What are we seeing happening in China?
Being ganged up on by
Being ganged up on by European powers, right? And Japan involved as well. This picture, right? Does this look like a positive or a negative portrayal of imperialism?
Negative.
Negative? Why do you think so?
because it shows violence as a way to break others down.
Shows violence as a way of bringing others down, right? I will say, right, when we look at this picture, with our understanding now, right, this looks negative. But during the time, I think this would be a positive, or an attempt at a positive portrayal of imperialism, right?
Because it shows unification.
It shows unification between European powers, right, and America and Japan. It shows them in positions of power, right? Also, all these animals are at least somewhat loosely related to the sort of animalistic depictions of these countries, right? The Russian bear, right? The American eagle, the German vulture, right? Like, these are all artistic depictions of what people sort of understood the animalistic depictions of these nations would be. And it shows them in a position of power, right, over China, which also has some kind of troubling and racist depictions going on there of Chinese, though accurate to the hairstyle of the. So, this historical event, right? is being depicted here in this illustration is an event, yes?
Global wars.
Hmm?
Global wars.
Global wars. Okay, yeah. Right, global wars, yes. But I'm gonna point to the specific historical, alright? So, in 1902, there was an incident in China called the Boxer Rebellion, right? Have any of y'all ever heard of the Boxer Rebellion?
I never heard some of it, but I can't really remember if I did or didn't.
So this was a rebellion by traditional Confucian and Buddhist believers in China, right? That was specifically anti-Western, anti-Christian in nature, right? And it became so bad, and the Chinese government allied themselves with the Boxers against the legation cities, right, that were existed in China that housed foreign nationals. That it led to the intervention by a coalition of European, American, and Japanese powers, right, into China. This is basically the sort of ending days of something I mentioned probably a good while ago now, right? The Chinese century of humiliation, right? That started with the Opium Wars, and then basically reached this point, right? Where the Chinese government is forced into submission by an international coalition of Western powers. And this is basically the death knell of the Chinese government, right? The imperial Chinese government. About 14 years later, it would collapse. Really good movie, The Last Emperor, depicts that whole process. But this is basically the end of the Chinese Empire, forever. So, this historical event is the Boxer Rebellion, right? Yeah, and they're called Boxers because they engaged in hand-to-hand combat, right? As a rule, basically.
So the Boxer Rebellion and the end of the Chinese
Yeah.
Empire.
Yeah. All right. So, number 4. Real quick ancient history lesson, y'all. Do y'all know what the Colossus of Rhodes was? No. Yes.
I assume that it's called railroads.
No, right? So, Colossus of Rhodes, right? This is ancient history. So it was a Greek statue on the island of Rhodes, right? Rhodes. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was one of the ancient wonders of the world, right? It was this gigantic Titanic statue, right? On the island of Rhodes that was basically like a welcome to Greece type scenario. Yeah, on the island of Rhodes, right? Yeah. So it was a really big statue, basically. You know, the Colossus of Rhodes. This illustration here, right, is basically bouncing off of that idea, like Titanic sort of statue, right? The Colossus of Rhodes from Cape to Cairo, right? Cape meaning Cape Town, South Africa. Cairo meaning, not know where Cairo is? It is, yeah. It's in Egypt, right? Yeah. It's one of the major cities in Egypt, right? So, someone, tell me what you see about this picture. Anything? Big dude, huge man, yeah.
I want to assume it's the Belgium from what we previously went over.
Hmm.
I said I want to assume it's the Belgium from what we previously went over because there's a lot of like displays on the dress, certain like kind of like that.
Right.
But as I said, we're not saying it's going to support like the entirety of Europe.
Right. Yes. It is, yeah.
It's a rifle.
It's a rifle. Yeah. So, this was made in 1892. What do y'all think the message of this cartoon is, right? Without knowing any background, what do you think it's trying to say?
European control over the entirety of Africa.
Excellent. Well said, right? European control over the entirety of Africa. Does this look like a positive portrayal?
It doesn't say. It doesn't seem like either.
I'm on the middle.
Yeah.
Neutral.
But
Neutral portrayal. So. Okay. So, now let's talk about the actual historical event right here. So, Cape Town, South Africa, right? Cairo, North Africa. If you look on a map, right? It's basically the two edges of the African continent. both of these places and basically everything in between on the east side of Africa was controlled by Great Britain during the time. This man is a British soldier. This is a classic sort of outfit of a British soldier during this time, right? And interesting enough too, right? We have these cables going right here in his hands. What do y'all think that's supposed to be? Control.
Yeah.
Having both of them there.
Having both of them in their hands, and like communication, right? Like the telegraph, right? This increase in like sort of logistical capabilities that allow this to take control, right? So this is basically depicting British control of much of South. Filming my post debrief of lesson. Number one, I feel that my lesson objectives were met. Again, our lesson objectives were to practice the skill of image analysis, to understand that we can point out things like symbolism and understanding of nuanced topics. In terms of anything that I might do differently next time, I believe it could be beneficial to have the kids engage in group work with this assignment and then bring that group work back together for a final sort of debrief to see what we all think, because I think it could bring up interesting interpretations, right? Differing interpretations rather than the sort of fixed interpretations that we ended up with in this form of assignment. So, after the teaching segment of this video, we went on to do our closer, which just consists of a 3-2-1 reflection on different aspects of both imperialism and colonialism. And in general, I felt like this lesson went very well. So, this is David Israel filming my post debrief of lesson. Number one, I feel that my lesson objectives were met. Again, our lesson objectives were to practice the skill of image analysis, to understand that we can point out things like symbolism and understanding of nuanced topics. In terms of anything that I might do differently next time, I believe it could be beneficial to have the kids engage in group work with this assignment and then bring that group work back together for a final sort of debrief to see what we all think, because I think it could bring up interesting interpretations, right? Differing interpretations rather than the sort of fixed interpretations that we ended up with in this form of assignment. So, after the teaching segment of this video, we went on to do our closer, which just consists of a 3-2-1 reflection on different aspects of both imperialism and colonialism. And in general, I felt like this lesson went very well.
Great.